Hello and welcome to the Kimbley IT Podcast with myself, James Kimbley, and my co-host, Carl Heath.
Hello.
In a couple of weeks since we last did one of these, we've been very, very busy. So we're kind of changing the format. We're going to talk about what we've been up to each week going forward on the Kimbley IT Podcast. So we've got 3 weeks to catch up with now. It's been a busy time getting new businesses onto G Suite, hasn't it, Carl?
Yeah, it certainly has. 3 clients in under 3 months. Takes some doing. You forget how much work it actually involved in getting it complete.
Yeah, well, quite a bit of the time is travel. So the first one was down in Kent, and that took up pretty much 4 days. The actual G Suite went live on the Friday, the weekend before, but we always travel down for the go live day to be there when it goes live on the following Monday, and we're there for 4 days in total. Was it 3?
Yeah.
3 days.
Went down on the Sunday, didn't we? We drove down on the Sunday. It was 4.5 hour drive for me, which might sound like a long, arduous drive, but actually I listened to Felix Dennis' book on my Audible while I was driving down, which was rather good. I rather enjoyed that, and I got half the book done on the way there, and I got the other half done on the way back. So it was a complete book done in the journey, so not a waste of time at all.
You should tell the listeners who Felix Dennis is, because most people won't know who he is at all.
No, you're absolutely right. And most people are surprised when you tell, here's what I knew. Felix Dennis was a publisher, a British publisher, and a very, very successful one at that. And in fact, one of Britain's most wealthiest men. He's unfortunately no longer with us. He died a few years ago. He was a publisher of many magazines, including Your Spectrum, which I used to buy nearly every single copy of Your Spectrum in the 80s. So I had no idea, James, that there I was funding Felix's later to be champagne and cocaine habit that he did admit he had a bit of a problem with later on in his career.
The company was Dennis Publishing, and he owned lots of tech and PC magazines during the 80s and the 90s.
Yep, and he has a book on how to become rich. The title's There or Thereabouts. And it's a really good read. It's really interesting, dead simple. He doesn't he doesn't waffle. This isn't one of those guru business books. This is where a guy who's done it just tells you how to do it straight. And I really enjoyed it.
It's a very good book.
It is. So that passed my 4.5 hours drive down to Kent. And we went all the way down to right by Dungeness, where the nuclear power station is. Do you remember when we arrived there and we had to drive down to have a look at it?
Yeah. It was actually a really good bar that we went to down there. It was an awesome ploughman's.
Didn't it? Yeah. You know, when we were driving around there and there was all those shacks that we were seeing, looked like wrecked old shacks.
Yep.
I asked my old man about them, my dad about those. You know that they're listed, they're grade listed, and they're worth like £200,000 to £300,000 each. It's true. I told my dad about it, and he went, "Yep, they're all listed car. Those things you saw where people look like you're living in the Badlands of Texas are actually grade 2 listed buildings."
Bloody awful.
Yeah, they were awful. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, amazing how much money and stuff that you don't realise sometimes.
Well, anyway, this going back to the client that we went to visit. So this is a client that has lodges for the elderly around the area.
Yes.
Previously, they were Microsoft 365. And the owner and the MD, Adam, really liked G Suite and wanted to move across to G Suite. He found it's far more it helped him improve productivity across his business and collaborate with all the homes together in one go.
Yeah, it was a particularly bad version of 365 because it was one that you can buy when you buy Sage accounts. So it was some sort of bastardized version of 365 as well, which made it even worse. It was a particularly poor implementation.
Difficult to migrate the emails from that one because you don't have access to all the 365 features.
No, and I think a lot of people don't realise that when they buy things like that are bundled up, like when you maybe buy a domain at GoDaddy and things, and they bundle email in for free and it looks like a deal, you can't get out of it and you can't use it properly.
Well, the interesting thing with this was they originally had 365 as a standalone, and when they moved to Sage found out they had 365 and offered them a bundled package, and then took their 365 inside their Sage portal or whatever you want to call it, and pretty much restricted access to a lot of the features on it.
Yeah, it made a right mess of it. But despite that, we set them up on G Suite, went down to site, saw the computers that they got. It was a really straightforward. They got a server, Windows server in place, which was a box on the floor. And all they were doing was browsing files from it. So that problem was solved straight away. Everything into Team drives and My Drive. No need for a server anymore.
No. All in the browser, as everyone knows.
Yep. And of course, the file stream application, so they can get it in Windows Explorer and stuff.
We did a slight upgrade on the computers because they previously only had 4 gigabytes of RAM, which is memory on a computer, and we upgraded it to 8 just because Chrome can become quite memory intensive if you've got lots of tabs open. And
Yeah, absolutely. We also upgraded the hard drives to solid state hard drives. And Windows 10, which is pretty much the standard. You need to have 8 gig of RAM and a solid state hard drive in your PC to run Windows 10 effectively. And the difference was noticeable for the users. When they got back on their computers after they were upgraded, they were amazed at how much faster it was than what they'd had.
Yeah, so we did the upgrades on a Sunday, and when they came in on a Monday, I had these new computers that are rapid.
Yep, I have de facto become Kimbley IT's go-to Sage guy, it would appear. Seems I'm stuck with that mantra after years of working with it. So we had to upgrade their Sage payroll and accounts as well, which isn't a joyous experience, but we got it done. I don't particularly like those products, but I have to admit, I have done it for so many years, I could nearly do it blindfold.
And nicely got their tablets set up for their clocking in software.
Yep.
So they're completely cloud-based. That business is now. There's not anything that's run locally at all in that company.
No, it's good.
Sage, but they're moving to Zero from Sage. So that won't be there for much longer.
That's right. Sage is going. I set up a lot of the women who worked in the care home with the elderly people with phones, their own phones, so they could get their documents and their G Suite on their own personal devices, which went well. We supplied everybody with our USB key for login.
Yep. So no
phishing.
Yep.
Issues.
Especially with the data they've got there, they've got highly sensitive data about medical information, and
that's right. Yeah.
So you need to have max security on that stuff.
Yeah. The last things to do there, they need a Wi-Fi upgrade. That's a slightly different project. We'll improve their Wi-Fi, which won't be difficult to do. I'll get that probably done for him in the early new year, I would think now.
Yep. And once that's in place, those homes will be nicely covered.
So of all the things that we did in Kent, actually going and doing the work itself was very straightforward. We didn't really have any bother at all. It was nice and easy to do. Things that I remember distinctly were staying in a hotel that was very old, creaky floorboards.
The Mermaid in Rye. Yeah,
Rye.
Good steak from the George just down the road.
Yep, that's right. That hotel was built originally, obviously not a hotel, 12th century, 11 something it was. Like 1185 or something, they told me. The problem with old hotels is you get to hear your neighbour, the person upstairs, having a row in the middle of the night. That's the problem.
I had that on the first night, but luckily I checked out by the second night, so I was okay.
Yeah, I had 4 stairs on the second night, so they ruled that out. I was went to sleep then.
I never sleep the first night in a hotel, so it wasn't too much of a problem.
No. But you are absolutely right. What a lovely old place Rye is. And the George is a bar, grill, restaurant there, and it's excellent.
Apart from you did complain about the size of the starter portion.
Well, it wasn't big enough.
It wasn't big enough, but, being English, worried that they might spit on the steak for the next round.
I wasn't worried.
Good steak there.
What did get me was that their card payment system broke down. So we couldn't pay by card for our meal at the end of the meal. Now, that would normally render someone like me arguing, well, that's their problem, not my problem, or am I going to go and get to the cash point? But no, James whips out his wallet and is carrying substantial amounts of £50 notes, which still baffles me that you carry 50s. No one carries 50s except you and car dealers. He's got nothing to say about that. The man carries £50 notes, so there you go.
Saved us on that attempt.
It did. Yeah, I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it'd have been a pain if we hadn't had that amount of money, because we'd have had to have a discussion with them, and we'd have ended up losing and having to try and find a cash point somewhere.
That's right. I know. It was just stood out to me. So yes, start of the month was down in Kent, which was very good. Got that done.
End of the month. End of October that was.
Was it end of October? Yeah. And they're going to have G Suite training as well.
That's next week when they got the Lauren going down to do G Suite training for them.
That's right. We've made that an insistence now. Anyone who works with Kimbley IT has to have the training. It's mandatory.
Yeah, and any new client really as well, because you want to get the most out of it. You need to have at least some basic training on there. It's a good chance that some of your employees are going to know how to use it, but there's also going to be a bunch that don't, and they need the training. That leads us nicely onto the second a new client that we've taken on in Cannock because they haven't used G Suite before, and the training they found invaluable.
Yeah, it was great. This is Charade Accident Repair Centre, and this company are a body shop. So they mostly repair the bodywork and structure of vehicles that have been damaged in accidents. Now, that might sound a bit boring. However, these aren't your average everyday vehicles. Oh no, they do prestige vehicles. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Rolls-Royce, Porsche, Tesla, McLaren. I don't think I've ever seen as many McLaren cars as I've seen in the last 3 weeks working at that place.
Yeah, which means they either break down or they get crushed a lot.
I asked about that, actually, James. It's funny you should mention that. There were some serious design faults in McLaren cars, such as no mesh on air intakes. So stones got sucked into the air intake and then got smashed up inside the vehicles. That was a design flaw. Another one where if the car went over 200 miles an hour on a particular, I think it's the 720 model, it rips the roof off. The Targa roof gets ripped off.
Okay.
But mostly, exuberant driving, shall we say, because that would appear to crashed
on a track day.
Yeah, there was one in Ferrari. They had a Ferrari in from South Africa, which had been completely destroyed on the front, and they would completely rebuild that back to Ferrari specification, which is pretty impressive stuff.
The most interesting cars that I found there were the Rolls Royces, because you don't see broken down Rolls Royces on the road or being towed around the place because Rolls Royce insists on them being covered up. So if a Rolls Royce does break down, it needs to be taken somewhere on the back of a truck. It'll be covered up so no one sees it. That's why. Have you ever seen a broken down Rolls Royce? Okay, you don't see that many Rolls Royces, but in your lifetime, you've probably never seen a broken down Rolls Royce parked at the side of the road or somewhere. It's always covered up immediately. Part of the marketing.
I didn't know that, James. I think that's ace. Didn't know that. Love that. That's a really good little pub quiz type thing. Yeah, you're right. I've never seen one. And I don't believe there were any in there that were broken per se at Charade. I think they were in for service.
Okay.
There was a coupe. No, would it be a coupe? They don't call it a coupe with the Rolls Royce, do they? They've probably got a particular name for that.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah, it's the 3-door.
Yeah, the 3-door. It's not Corniche, because Corniche is the convertible, I think.
Corniche isn't even a Rolls Royce, is it?
Yes.
Is that a Lambo?
No, a Corniche is the convertible Rolls Royce. That's what they called it, the Corniche. Okay. No, but yeah, they had one of those in the 3-door in there. It's a beast. It's a big vehicle. It's a big thing.
Yeah, they're nice.
Anyway, we're wattling on about the cars too much. Now, they're leaders in technology, this business, in what they do in repairing and servicing vehicles. However, their IT was a little bit far behind. And they'd had a bad experience with their current IT provider, which is usually what pushes people over the edge. But this one was a little bit more than a bad experience.
This was quite unbelievable what happened, really.
No, it was, wasn't it? It was pretty shocking. They'd had a bad time, so they decided it was time to move. The MD had decided it was time to move. This was a referral through somebody else we know, which was very helpful. So we went in. I did my chat with Steve, liked what I got to say. He shook on the deal, and we agreed to move forward and work together. I then said, right, here is our information we want from your previous provider that we need to have as we transition over. So the previous provider then, on the Friday morning when I go in, cuts them off from access to their email, and then demands monies.
Even after they'd said that you've got 90 days to carry on before we're going to turn you off.
Yeah, even after they'd agreed to pay the next day, that Friday, they'd agreed to pay, they did it anyway.
And they also refused to hand over the domain name, so we had to end up going through Nominet to get control of these domain names.
Yeah, we did. We had to go through Nominet to get their main .co.uk domain, which luckily for us, they'd registered the domains properly in the first place. So they were actually all registered to the business and the business owner, thankfully. Sometimes people don't do that and they find themselves in a tricky spot.
Yeah, because the Nominet is essentially the land registry of the internet, and whoever's name is associated with that domain is the legal owner.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if Kimbley.com is the primary domain in our business. And if that was registered to, say, somebody you'd worked with many years ago who did it for you, and it was registered to them and their limited company.
Normally the web developer.
Yeah, that's right. It would actually belong to them if you went into a dispute and said, oh, that's mine, I've been using it. Well, you might have to get a lawyer out and a few other things before you could prove it was yours.
Yep.
And I think it's a lot of things businesses don't notice, but we hit the jackpot this time because they'd got it registered. So we got the domain over because we didn't trust this existing IT company as far as you could throw them. I mean, fancy losing a contract and then cutting off your customer and behaving like slamming the phone down as well. Because
they've been with them for 15 years as well, haven't they? Or
a
very long time period.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes you lose the deal. It happens. You lose a contract. It happens. And sometimes you lose it because you weren't good enough. That's the way business is. But you don't behave like a child. This lot did. But to couple with that, what did I get on that Friday? So I go in, their email system's all gone off. So they're all a bit stressed out. I chill them out on that and say, look, okay, we'll get it sorted out. And then the hard drive fails on the accounts computer.
Don't forget, for the listeners, that we actually had to pull our planned G Suite migration forward a week because of them cutting it out on a Friday. We were planning to do the migration the week after, but because
that's right,
them cutting it out, we had to bring the whole thing forward. So it was all a bit more rushed and probably slightly a bit more disorganized than normal, but it went ahead.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd gone in with the intention of installing the software, the support software that we have as part of the process to get used to it. And I had to call you up, tell you what the situation was, and we decided there and then, let's just go live today. Let's do it this weekend, and we'll start on Monday. They'll have the training on the Thursday, and we'll bring it ahead by a week, which we did. And we got on with it. But say we'd had this failed hard drive in the accounts computer. So I have the accounts lady, Judith, comes up to me and says, Carl, my computer won't start. It's just got a black screen. I have a quick look at it. It's a BIOS job. That means before the operating system's loaded, before Windows is loaded, and I can see hard drive failure. And I can hear it. It's going tick, 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 tick.
It's always the noise that gives it away.
Yep, dead disk. And I said to her, okay, where are the backups? Well, I've got accounts backed up on the server. And I went, yes, I've seen that. Okay. What about the payroll? Oh, well, we were told it was all backed up. Of course, their IT company, the previous one, had said everything was backed up. So they thought it was. But all the payroll backups were on that computer. So they had no payroll. And they've got about 40 employees at that place. You know, they're not all computer users, but they've got a lot of people in the body shops. They've got a lot of people who want to get paid in a few days' time. And now they've got no payroll data.
It's not a great position to be in.
No, it sucks. And it's been a long time since I had to deal with a failed hard drive where it actually lost someone data, because, you know, anyone who's worth their salt in IT doesn't keep data on a local machine without a backup.
And this is where the best data recovery company in the country, East Anglia Data Recovery, Alison, comes in to save the day. So you get the hard drive out of the machine. It's couriered down to on the same day, I believe.
Well, if I jump in, James, that's right. I LinkedIn messaged Alison about 3:30. It said, I've got a failed hard drive. Can you help me? She phoned me up, said, yes. Where are you? I said, I'm here. What is it? A hard drive? She said, okay, let's get a courier. She got on the phone for me. She found a courier that came and picked it up from my house in Telford, where I live. So I took the hard drive home, picked it up from my house at 7 at night. It was with her for 10:30. So she then told me she got it. So we knew where that disk was all the way, because that's super important. You can't be putting this thing on overnight. It has to go direct same day so that you know that drive's not lost. Next morning, Steve from East Anglian Data Recovery tells me it's in the lab. We're checking it out. Half an hour later, he says, it's not looking good, Carl. I've got to put parts on it first before I can tell you if the data can be saved. And then a couple of hours later, he said, yep, we can recover your data. And he gave me a list of the data. Monday morning, back to the client, paid them, got the download, got the payroll data, and the payroll was back online by midday Monday. That's pretty damn good over a weekend.
Very good.
Yeah, I can't fault it. EADR.co.uk, East Anglian Data Recovery. I don't care. Give them a big up. They were awesome.
Yeah, we don't have to use them that often, luckily, but whenever we have had to use them, onboarding normally, brilliant guys.
Oh, yeah. And it shows the state of the IT world. When I ask Alison, are you in a declining market? Are things getting tough for you? Everyone backs up their data these days. Busier than ever, James. Busier than ever. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Because most people don't back up their data. We, as IT companies, we only see a small portion of people. Basically, people who come and work with an IT company like us are ones that care about their IT, so they get in contact. But the vast majority of businesses don't get in contact with IT support. They just do amend as it goes along, and they're the ones that have these problems all the time.
I find that. I know you tell me that regularly now, and I forget about that because I'm so used to not imagining that the actual amount of companies that pay or have a relationship with someone who looks after their systems and technology for them is less than those that don't. It's phenomenal to know that. But then, of course, I suppose I've worked with businesses where they've employed IT managers at £60,000-70,000 a year, and they're not very good. Yep. Not very good at all. So you can even have it, and you're still going to fall on your backside because you've got someone who's working for you who's not very good. Many customers I took.
Once you got that data back,
yes,
Shrade, you got their payroll up and running.
Well, there was a small issue with that. I had one of them moments where I thought I was going mad. I thought I was going mad. Payroll was fine, James. I restored payroll perfectly fine. I went to restore the accounts data again because I need to add a little factor here. I got the accounts working on Judith's PC and payroll. And then the next day, Tuesday, that hard drive failed in her computer. Now, I hadn't put a new hard drive in. What I'd done was took one of the other computers that wasn't in use in the business and put that on her desk and configured it. And of course, they're from the same batch, about the same age. And so that one failed. So I had to rebuild it again. So I go to rebuild it. And every time I rebuild accounts and restore the data, I can see the company accounts once. I log out, log in, no data. Drives me mad. I've done this a million times. I did it on my laptop, on a virtual machine. It did the same thing. I did it at home on my Windows 10. It did the same thing. I think I've lost it. I'm ready to quit and take up painting and decorating at this point. And the next day I said to them, right, you've got to have Sage support, because one of the things that Kimbley IT insist on, we know what we do best, but if you've got an accounts package, you have to have support from the accounts provider. We're not going to do that for you. We're not accountants. We don't know about that stuff. So I said, look, you've got to buy Sage support, which they did. Rang up Sage support. Got through to them after about 4 hours on hold. Something stupid like that. It's ridiculous. And yes. Oh, I can see the problem, Carl. You've put the Sage payroll key and activation into the account software, which I had. I do admit I had put that in because we were busy, Judith and I, and we got confused. But why would the accounts program accept the bloody serial key for the payroll program and activation key and work once? What an annoying bug.
It's just nuts. That is. There's no warning. It should be able to detect that you've entered the wrong thing and put a bit of red text up.
If it had put the wrong, it said no, that's the wrong key. I'd have gone back, realised that I had in fact got the wrong key, got the right key, and away we'd gone, and I would have saved myself 24 hours of pulling my hair out.
And that's why we advise people to drop Sage and move to Xero.
Well, yeah, and that's going to be something that will come up in due course conversation with our client, because Xero is our preferred accounts package. It's rather fabulous. We use it ourselves. Our best customers use it. It's really good. Sage is way behind.
Sage is just awful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
This is my theory. You can tell Sage is a very bad program by how long you have to wait on the call to be answered by their support, because there's so many people in the queue ahead of you.
I wonder about that sometimes. You ring them up. It's an 0845 number. So you're paying some money for this phone call, and it is always an hour. No matter when you call, it's an hour. And they count it down. Like they've got that thing counting down. Oh, you'll be this many minutes and that many minutes. But it's always like an hour. What a load of old cock that is.
Yeah.
It's such a waste. They must be making a killing on it, or they haven't got enough people, or as you say, it's going wrong constantly.
It's really odd, because if you think about it, Sage is a pretty well-known and big accounts package, and it's probably probably the biggest UK software developer, maybe.
That might be a bad shout
for those kind of business products. But they're getting killed already by everyone. Everyone, as typical, a UK developer is fallen behind, not caught up, and now Silicon Valley. You got Xero, which I think is originally from New Zealand, or
correct,
it could be Australia.
Company. New Zealand company.
And they're just coming along and wiping the floor again. It's like a British software developer company can't understand that actually we should get this software in the cloud. We've got some good software here, but we need to get it in the cloud and make it a bit more reliable and a bit easier to use. And they failed to do it.
They've tried to do it, but they're late. They're too late to the party now.
It's like 365 with their collaboration.
Don't get me started on that.
They're late to the party. They're slowly getting it there, but they're still miles behind on G Suite when it comes down to real-time collaboration.
But you know what? It is ironic that you mentioned that as a relevance, because it is relevant. There's two reasons why those two companies still carry on, because they have got massive brand reputation, Sage and Microsoft, and they're living on that.
Yep.
Not the product, not the quality. They're living on their brand name.
Because Sage is not a household name, but you could call it a business name. You go into most businesses and say Sage, people will know what it is. Yeah. Office has got the benefit of also being a household name, Microsoft Office, still.
Yeah. What I mean by that is Microsoft, that brand is associated with.
If you have a business, brand.
Yeah, business means Office, and Sage means accounts in most small businesses. But it won't last forever, because Xero really is taking over. You wait. Somebody needs to make the equivalent of Sage 200 in the cloud, which is like an ERP level accounts package, so it's bigger than 50. Once that happens, Sage are doomed, because everybody hates Sage 200. The only reason they have it is because there isn't anything else in that mid-range.
It's interesting. When you talk to anyone about Sage, no one likes it. I've never met anyone who says a nice thing about Sage.
No, they just had to use it because they were the market leader. They've been that, and they're complacent. But now they're having their market eroded.
So after we got Sage sorted, it was time
Yes.
for, that would have been the Monday. So that would have been their go live day as well. Once you got Sage up and running. So they'd have all been signing into their Google accounts for the first time.
That's right. We had Chrome on everyone's machine. We got them signed in. We signed them into Chrome so that all their favorites were synchronized. We got them into their Gmail. And you know what? None of these people are millennials. Well, okay, maybe Penny. One of them was a millennial. The rest were all over 40. And you know what? They were all bang on the money. They were all awesome. They all took it on and said, yep, get it. It's email, send, receive, understand. Some of them even said, when I showed them sheets and docs, I don't want Excel anymore. I'll just open it here.
What surprised me the most about Charade was their acceptance for change. There was not a single person in that office that was moaning, I want to go back to the old system. I don't want this. I don't like change. They were all up for it and really wanted to change. And they were seeing the benefits immediately. There was plenty of people coming up to me going, this is fantastic, this using this modern system. And I can see how much of a dinosaur we were previously.
Yeah, the MD was really loving it, wasn't he? No more USB sticks for him. And I think a few of them really liked Hangouts chat, didn't they? They really liked, well, Hangouts Classic, I use the brand name, but they used Hangouts and they loved the fact they could chat to each other.
Yeah, Hangouts always kills internal email, always.
Yeah, and I know they use it now because I can see when I'm there, they talk to each other on it. And it's good. They send themselves links. They talk genuine business, and they also say the donuts when's a brew being made, so they get what it's for.
Yeah, exactly. And it's they've had similar features with their custom software that they still use and still have, but they've stopped using those and have replaced a lot of those with Hangouts, such as reminders where they used to drop in a message that, hey, Clive has called you while you're in a meeting. Now they just drop that in a Hangout to whoever.
Yep, it's worked really well.
Phone calls.
Managing director's wife, who's a part of the business, said, this is brilliant. I only used to come into the office because I had to get access to the network drive. And when you showed her Google Drive on her phone and her device, she was like, wow, I don't need to have to come in now. She still comes in because she likes to see everyone, but she knows now she doesn't have to come in for the reasons she used to.
So they had 3 days of using G Suite essentially on their own. They had you and I to contact if they needed some assistance. And then on Thursday is when Lauren visited to give them their training, where they had 2 sessions, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, split out. So they split out between team members. And that went really, really well. Lauren knows her stuff, and absolutely fantastic training. Was able to explain in great detail to the guys how to do things, answer questions, show them how to use labels in Gmail, which is always, that's the part that people find in Gmail the most confusing, the difference between labels and folders. But when an expert takes you through that, now you see the power of labels and creating filters to automatically sort your emails for you, and you never go back to folders after that.
No, you're
the concept of folders.
You're right. Lauren from CloudShed, who our training provider, was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There were lots of wows. This is awesome. This is new technology. Can't believe we can do that. I mean, smiling people coming out of a training session. That's not something you associate with training in computers.
No, not at all. The funny part was with the MD asking about the USB sticks.
Yeah.
What do I do with my USB stick now? Well, you don't use them anymore.
Yeah. And I believe, I wasn't there, but I was told that he sort of went back a bit on that. Said, well, what if I want to? And Lauren just went, no, you don't.
Yep.
And gave him a 10-minute lecture on why he'd never used one again.
Yeah, 10-minute lecture on why not to use a USB stick, along with 10-minute lecture of why using Google Drive is safer and more secure.
Great. And that's ultimately what you want when you confide in an expert. You don't go to a lawyer to appear in court and do something and then go, no, I'm not listening to you. I'll say what I bloody like. Well, you can if you're an idiot. But if you've got any sense, you'll listen to your counsel. And it's exactly what they did with Lauren. And it worked brilliantly.
Worked amazingly, because I turned up middle of the day. You'd been there all day. And I turned up. First person I spoke to was Steve, the MD. And he came up and said, training was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. I loved getting a bollocking about the USB sticks. That was really good fun. I now understand that I don't use USB memory sticks anymore. Great fun and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was really good. Really good. And they have since then taken to what we do, G Suite by Kimbley IT, like duck to water. I've sent out today, for example, I create a signature for them. So I didn't get them to create the signature. I put it together in a doc and shared it with the MD and said, are you happy with this signature? He said, yes. I've sent it out with a template. They can copy and paste. You know what? 5 of them already done it.
Yeah.
I offered to help them tomorrow. If they get stuck, I'll go there. I'm doing some other stuff. But you know what? They've cracked on and just go on with it.
that's one of the things that we do that's probably unique with what we offer, in that we get the end user to actually do the changes, because that's where they learn. If we just went in and pasted it in, they've learned nothing. All they've learned is that, oh, if I need my signature changed, I need to contact Kimbley IT each time, and they'll paste something in, which isn't efficient for anybody. So we give them the instructions, do this. If you're still struggling in 24 hours time, then we'll help you, but have a good shot at it beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely right. It not only benefits the person because they actually get forced to learn. You've got to push out your comfort zone. They take it on, they've done it, they grow in confidence, then they'll try something else and get better. And actually, it's an incremental improvement. So it works for them. And when you're running a business, imagine trying to scale your business where every person, what they know is, I need to contact James or Kyle. You can't scale your business because suddenly, let's say you had 10,000 people to look after, 10,000 users. How many employees are you going to need for every single one of them says, I need to contact Kimbley IT today because I need to change my signature?
Well, it's not just us that would affect scaling. It would also affect our clients, because their users essentially become robots who can't do anything else. Yeah. They haven't been, they're relying on someone else to do part of their job for them because they're too scared to go and explore and do it themselves.
Yep. And many people, when I've told them about what we do, they've said, well, how can you do that? You're getting your customers to do the work for you. And I'm like, yes, if you see it from one way, but no, if you see it from another. Actually, what I'm doing is making their people better. I'm improving their business for them by pushing back a bit and challenging them to be better. It's a development thing. It's personal development.
Education, all about educational. Because these people now, if you think about it, before they could only use Microsoft Office 365, there's a good chance that these people, at some point might move to another job elsewhere. And now on their CV, they can say, I can do 365 and I can also do G Suite.
Yeah.
Double their skills.
Yep. That's absolutely right. That's been a really good client. We've both really enjoyed that. There's still a bit more to do. We've got some Wi-Fi to do. We've got to change out their device for our standard, because Kimbley IT has a standard. And one of the devices that they've got at present doesn't meet that standard. So we will replace it for one of our standard devices, because we are the McDonald's of IT agencies. But really, it's the lion's share of the work is done there.
Yeah. One of our existing clients has extended their agreement with us. Tomorrow People.
Yes, that's right. Of course,
we had a chat with them. They're our longest client. They've been around with us, I think it's about 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
And it was time to have a refresh on the IT, go over what things needed changing and what can be improved in their current setup. And that's all gone ahead. So they'll be with us as we go forward and get their broadband sorted. It's a bit of a nuisance at the moment.
Yep. So it's been a really, really good and interesting 3 to 4 weeks recently, which is why we haven't had the podcast, because we've been classically busy doing that. However, now we've got through that. Now's the time we can catch up with other things and get back more into our routine.
Yeah, so ongoing with our podcast, we are going to do weekly, essentially it's going to become a weekly review podcast where we're going to talk about what we've been up to in the previous week.
Yep. Seems to have worked on this one, doesn't it? Makes for a better conversation.
Yeah,
I'll let the listener be the judge of that one.
Obviously, on the subscription numbers.
Leave a review James and I's conversation. Tell us how we are.
Well, we're basically separating the podcast because you've got your No Techno Babble, which is going to be more about the technology and talking about the benefits of using certain technology, such as having decent broadband connections and what that brings to your business. And this is falling back to more of my founder's log that I used to produce in the past, which was just me recapping what happened during the week. And now, hey, you're on board as another director. That's one thing we haven't mentioned on here. During those 4 weeks, didn't we get the document signed? Or was that before then?
We got we signed the document at Google Next.
Oh, so yeah, we've already announced that on the previous version that you're part of the company.
What we can announce is it's on Company's House now.
Has it been updated?
Yeah.
I haven't checked that out yet.
Yeah. The shareholding percentage is wrong, but that's for another discussion. Doesn't matter anyway. It's out of date.
Yeah, it says so in the...
What the contract says is what matters.
As long as I haven't reversed it.
Yeah, it's on Company's House now. It must have got done the other day when we talked about it.
But yeah, that's this week's catch up for the last couple of weeks, and then we should be a bit more calmed now with over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. So thank you for listening. As I mentioned earlier on, if you do want to leave a review of what we're doing, it would be good. It'd be nice to know somebody was listening, maybe. So leave one. Where are we found, James? Is it on all good reputable podcast listings?
Yes, it should be.
It should be. In other words, should. That's dangerous, isn't it? The word
Stitcher, Apple iTunes. I don't think we're actually on Google Podcasts.
Interesting.
Mainly because it's really difficult to find out how you get yourself listed there. But Kimbley IT blog, we're there as well.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, find us on kimbley.com. And as you said, you can search for us on Stitcher and Apple Podcasts. I've done both and it works.
Good stuff. Well, we'll leave it there and we'll talk to everyone next week.
Okay, see you later.